Hello everyone and welcome to my corner of the world. I have a technique to share with you today and I believe it's called the floating strip technique, and that is where we have this piece here is actually kind of floating above the surface of the card, and you can see that it's got like a piece of acetate or window sheet behind it. So we have a few techniques going on as well. We're going to do a little bit of die cutting, and I'm going to be sharing the some of the more unusual products that are available to us from Stampin' Up. So my stamp set and dies that I'm sharing today are the framed florets. Those of you who know me know I love florals, and I like a stamp set with some nice greetings in them as well. And then we have a couple of sheets of coordinating dies. Here we go. And another oval here that cuts not only an oval but a frame, and we'll be using this in our card today. So there's our products. Let's share how we're going to pull our card together. Now I have my my supplies, and I've got a base card and some layers, obviously in my envelope, and I've got two pieces of vanilla, one slightly larger than the other, and it's the small one that I'm going to work on for the front of my card, and then this slightly larger piece goes inside. Now some of the products that I'm using may actually have been retired by the time this video goes out, because we're right at the changeover for Stampin' Up for our new products. But this will work with any color combination that you may have in your stash. So I'm going to take my smallest piece of card first, and I'm going to put in my greeting. Now I'm going to use a different one than on my original card. This says wishes for a beautiful birthday. I'm going to use the one for a special person on a special day. And I'm going to stamp this so that it just goes across the corner. And by doing that, I know that I don't have to worry about it being centered, level, or anything like that. I can just go with the flow. And I've also made sure I've got it quite close to the corner, so I've got enough room for the rest of my decorations. And then I've got this little dotty stamp, which I'm just going to gently go over my card just to give it a bit of texture there. So that's my outer layer, and this is going to be my inside layer. And I'm just going to put a few dots in that corner. And then I've got my envelope, and I love to decorate my envelopes. I'm just going to put a few dots on my envelope like that. I think I'm finished with my Sahara Sand. That's the Sahara Sand ink. I can get rid of that, and I can get rid of my greeting. And then there's another stamp in the set, which is this really attractive leaf, and I want to use that, and I'm going to do that on my envelope. Isn't that an attractive leaf? And I'm also going to do it on the inside of my card there. And I think now I am finished stamping. I can go ahead and get this attached. So my theory is, or my working method is, to always attach the small pieces to the large piece, so that when you finish off your card, you're basically putting the smallest bit on, whether it be a little ribbon bow or a rhinestone or some form of embellishment. That's always your last bit. So there's my 2 layers there. Now my measurements on these is, my card base is 8.5 by 5.5, and I scored it at 4.25. And then I've got this pale green, this soft succulent green, which is 4 by 5.25. And then on the top of that, I have my top layer, which I've stamped, which is 5 by 3.75. Now, you don't have to remember those measurements, because if you look immediately below this video, you'll see a link to my blog, and it will take you exactly to the post for this card, so you don't have to go hunting and pecking for it. So that's all our basic bits done. So now we're going to do decoration. Now my decoration is using one of the dies in the set, and it's this lovely set of leaves, and you can see that I've cut one in each of my colours, including distressed gold. Now you can see that the bits are really fine, and so rather than try and use like regular adhesive like liquid or Stampin' Seal, I'm going to be using the adhesive sheet. Now this is a very thin sheet of adhesive between 2 sort of non-stick pieces, like it's sort of waxy, and I have used this before. And so you're just going to separate the pieces. Now the adhesive will be just on one side, and you need to, and I think it's that side there, and you don't want to touch it with your fingers because it's so fine, it literally will lift off the paper and you won't be able to, it sort of no good anymore. So I'm just going to slide it back, that backing paper, a little bit, and then just gently pull this down. And I do it that way because if I take all the backing paper off, then I've got a lot of adhesive that I'm trying to wrangle there, and I don't want to do that. So there's my piece of cardstock with the adhesive sheet, and I am now going to cut with the die. So here is my die, and you want to make sure that you put your die on the card side, not the adhesive side. Right, so somewhere I should have my other plate. There it is. So I'm just going to layer that down and then just gently crank through. This has got quite a lot of detail on this die, so I am going to just very slowly crank so that it gives plenty of time for those edges to cut. And I'm going to just check to see that I've got a good cut. And you see, if I don't, I'll just pop it down and run it through again. But that is a really nice cut. And I can now wiggle it like this. It'll get the die. And then just keep wiggling and it will free up your cut piece like this. And you can always just use your piercing tool just to take those little pieces out. However, we might find that when we take the excuse me, the backing off, when we're ready to stick it down, a lot of those little pieces will actually come away. Right, so that's one. I've already done the other pieces, so I've got one in gold and then one in the darker green, the Evening Evergreen. So those are my pieces there. And my next piece I'm going to cut is an oval. And this time I'm using what's known as window sheet. So it's a very thin piece of clear plastic. And we're going to use this. It comes in a 12 by 12. And I think I cut this 4 by 3. But it's this, basically, it's the size just over slightly than the oval die from the framed florets dies. So I'm just going to lay that down. It's a bit difficult to see, but pop my lid on, and then I'm just going to crank through. Now, again, you need to just crank it through slowly, and again, the reason is to allow those edges of the die to cut through that thick plastic. You can hear it creaking and cracking. And I can hear that it is cutting. So this is good news. There. Let's see what we've got. So there's our die. And we've got 3 pieces. So there's the outer piece, which is rubbish. Then we've got the frame. Now, I'm not using that on this project, but if you can use it for something, just put it away. And this is the bit that we want. This is the oval, the plain oval from the middle of that die. Right, so our next step is to cut some strips of decorative paper. And all I've done is cut a piece of decorative paper that the oval will fit on, and I'm going to be cutting this at 3/8 strips. I 1/4 of an inch was okay. 1/2 an inch was too thick, but I much preferred the 3/8. So we're just going to cut, I think we need about 5, maybe 6 strips. So there's 3, 4. I'm going to go for this. So my starting point really was to choose some pretty decorative paper. And then when I had my decorative paper, that is when I chose my card colours. Now I'm going to put my oval on a piece of grid paper, and if you can just see, I've kind of lined up the top end with a line here and the side with one of these lines here. And really that's to try and make sure that it's level. Then I'm going to be taking a piece of my cut paper and with some Stamp and Seal, I'm going to pop some onto the back of my piece of paper. Now, normally, as you may know, I use liquid adhesive, but I found that with liquid adhesive, it will work, but it takes forever to dry. So I find that this is the best thing. And all I'm going to do is line up the bottom edge of my cut strip, and I lined it up with this line on the paper. It can be any line, just as long as it's one of them. And that allowed me to make sure I've got a nice straight line. So then I'm just going to add my pieces, and I'm just going to leave a little gap between each one, and I'm not quite sure how big that gap is. I've no idea. I don't know if it's an 1/8 or a 1/16, but I just found that a nice narrow gap just added something to the overall thing. Now, I guess if I'd been smart, I could have put my strips in order so that the pattern follows through. And I think if I'd have used something like a floral paper, I would have done that. But this has got a pretty random pattern on it anyway, so I don't think it's then going to have it be detracted because I haven't got I haven't got quite enough strips. So let's just go and cut myself a couple more. So just on the 3/8 mark, 1, and this should be enough. There we go. So it's quite therapeutic, actually, just building this up gently. I'm just going to put this tiny bit in the middle, just so I don't lose the outline of my oval. There we go. I just gently smooth all that down, and then I'm going to... Now, you could do this bit on a silicone sheet. Just get your first layer down and then do the rest on a silicone sheet, so you don't have to worry about this. But I didn't do that, so after all that, this came off. There. And then with some paper snips, I'm going to, this is being troublesome now because it's got too much adhesive on it and it keeps sticking to my finger. I'll stick that on right at the end. So then with my paper snips, I'm just going to flick it over and just follow the line of my window sheet oval. Like that. And you could do this with a square, a heart, a circle, whatever shape. I decided to do it with an oval because I love the shape of an oval. I think it's nice and graceful, and I just like that shape. So let me just put that tiny bit. I know what I'll do is I'm going to chop the top and the bottom. Yeah. Okay, excuse me while I get close and personal with this. You might be off the screen. I just needed to get that stuck down. Right. There. Now you can then stick this to your card in one of two ways. You can either use mini dimensionals, or in my case, I decided that I would use these foam adhesive strips. And I've used these a lot of times on shaker cards and things like that. But I'm going to use it here. But you can use, as I say, mini dimensionals. So I am just going to put a length of this. Now you could put like every other one, but my preference is to put it on behind every single strip, and that gives it lots of stability behind, you know, to hold it in place, and so it doesn't sort of cave in, particularly if you were like posting it and it might get squashed. With this extra adhesive strip, it means that it will bounce back and have a lovely pop. And then we're just going to take the backing off of our strips. Let's use my tool, see if that's, no. Trying to hurry to do the least exciting pieces of the card. But as the, what is it they say? Less haste, more speed. Right. And so I'm going to put this to the, on the card, and you can put it whatever way that you wanted it to go. So can you see we've got that 3D effect like that? And then we've got our decorative leaves. So these have all got the adhesive on the back already, so I'm just going to scoot that off and remove it, and you can see that there's a couple of bits that have lingered behind, but, and you can also see that when I come to put this down, instead of trying to put adhesive behind all of those little bits, they're all going to, I'm going to try and have that hanging over a little bit. And then I'm just pressing firmly, and all those bits are stuck down. So here's our next one. And I'm just going to just line that up a little bit to make it work. And then my final one is the gold one. Just trying to find the backing tape. There it is. And just gently pull. And I've just got one little bit that didn't come out. And this one I'm going to position so that it is some over and a little bit under my floating oval there. There we go. And then my final flourish is to use some of this ribbon. This is called Gold and Silver Trim, and you get 1 silver and 1 gold in the pack, and there's 10 yards in each, and that's such a good deal. And that's available on the online exclusives while stocks last. And I'm just going to add a little bow just where those pieces cross, and I'm done. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this card and the technique, and also how I've shown you how to use adhesive sheet and window sheet for your card designs. If you've enjoyed, perhaps you'll go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you don't already subscribe, perhaps you'll do that as well. And if you've any comments, I would love to hear them. Just write them down below the video. Well, thank you for joining me once again. I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye for now.